Can you give a brief synopsis of like the history of the paper over the years?
Sure. I have issues that date back to like the 1920s, so I know that there's been a high school newspaper at Dexter for a long time. It's just not, the records aren't really complete, so I'll have some from the 20s and then maybe none until the 50s again or whatever. So it's really not until like maybe the late 90s, mid 90s maybe, where there's like a whole series of papers for a couple years. So I know the paper here at Dexter goes back a long way, but I started at Dexter 13 years ago, and that's when students came up with the idea of let's call it the Squall. And before that it was called the paper, and they just thought that was pretty plain and kind of silly. I think, you know, it's been kind of cool to watch it progress over the years. My first year here there was only 8 students on staff. None of them knew very much about journalism. It was all seniors, and I think it's been a cool progression to watch the paper change, get better, get people fired up about it, and just kind of, students have done a great job, you know, making it a relevant paper, I think.
Does teaching the class ever get overwhelming?
It can, yeah. I mean, I think like there are times where I have to tell myself just to like take a big breath and inhale and just breathe a little bit. And there are times where I leave, I go get a drink. Like I walk out for a few minutes, just because there's a million different questions being shot at you from a million different angles. And then also just trying to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be there. I mean, the editors are in charge of that, but I help to support them, so that can get pretty stressful as well. So, well, you know, I think overall, whenever kids get individual awards for work that they do, whenever the paper as a whole is recognized, like on the state level or national level, that's pretty cool, because to me that just sort of shows, hopefully, that I've been able to get students to the point where they can create a good product. So that's pretty awesome.
Look around this whole place. It's like the wallpaper is awards that we've gotten for the work.
I guess when a student comes back after a few years and goes, hey man, you know what I learned in your class I'm using right now, and it was just really beneficial. Like a student just put a message on my Facebook wall the other day that she's using InDesign at work because no one else at work knew how to do it, and she's like, I learned it from you. So that's cool, you know, when something that you teach goes beyond the classroom. It's awesome.
Starting my sophomore year, my first year on staff, some parents took offense with some articles that we ran about students going to Club Chrome and grinding. Some of these parents started a blog talking about how we as a newspaper need to be censored by Mr. Moran. As a staff, we are very, very against that idea.
I think, as weird as it sounds, criticism can be a good thing, and that's what we've tried to do, particularly with the Clean Up DHS blog, where really with any criticism we get, try to use it as a learning experience. But I think the key is, what did we do? Did we do something wrong? If we did, let's fix it. Or, in the case of a lot of the Clean Up DHS criticism, we looked at it and said, did we do anything wrong? And if we come to the determination no, then we should be able to say we didn't, and we were satisfied with the decision we made because. So it's a good critical thinking effect when people criticize it. More than a lot of classes, one of the things that I like about this class is that it sort of teaches you, forces you actually to work together with other people.
The sense of team we have here, how well we all work together and tolerate each other.
We really rallied around not just SAT or our editors-in-chief, Alex Everard and Brittany Martini, but we just sort of came together to like fight for this sort of ideal that we had as the Squall, as something really special that we put together, and sort of fulfilling like a need that the school has, and that as we perceived that some people were trying to take away from us, and not just from us but from the entire school district and from the community at large.
Even if you don't really talk to that many people outside of the class, you are really tight with them inside the class, and the editors will do pretty much anything to help you out along with SAT.
What is your fondest memory of your time with the newspaper?
Wow, there are a lot of fond memories that I have. Okay, so I got a couple that I think are pretty cool. One, the first lock-in that we had a layout night lock-in. So every month we spend about probably 8 hours after school here working on the paper to try to get it together. A couple years ago we had our first lock-in, and so students stayed, we worked late, we stopped working at about midnight, and then at about midnight we started watching movies until about 2 a.m. and then we went to bed for a few hours. And then the next morning I got up and started cooking breakfast for them. We were making pancakes and things like that. So other teachers and students started rolling in, and everyone's in their pajamas, and there's like pancake smell going through the hallway. And so when people like looked at us like, what is wrong with you guys? I just thought that was kind of fun because it's like, oh, so here's something that's pretty cool to do.
What's your favorite part of being in the newspaper?
Probably short shorts Wednesdays. Everyone shows up to class in short shorts, and it's just a great time.
I'm personally a fan of no pants Thursdays.
Those are fun.
Do you have any particular horror stories?
I have a lot of horror stories. So there's obviously, beyond like misspellings and headlines or like people misquoted or names spelled wrong, those are always horror stories. But we went to press one time with it was a fact box about a movie, and the director's name, no one could find it, and so temporarily they put in a fake name, and so people forgot to go back and change it to the real name, and so the guy's fake name was Richard Head. So think about that for a second. And we went to print with this guy's name, and I don't think anyone ever caught it, but it was very embarrassing to have something like that go out there. And then I think anytime somebody's like, "Hey, you did this wrong," that's just an embarrassing moment because you're supposed to get stuff right, but inevitably you get things wrong, but it's bad when it happens.
How would you describe like the work ethic of the class?
We get work done when we need to, and we have fun when we need to.
It's a relaxed work ethic, but everyone gets their stuff done, so it's okay.
It seems to be pretty lackadaisical, but we get a lot of shit done, so.
Right? So a couple students went to a workshop this summer at Michigan State, so like a journalism camp for a week. And one of the ideas they came away with was, and it was particularly Emily Darrow, one of the things she came away with, but everybody else that was there too, is let's switch to this magazine format because number one, you can do more eye-catching stuff, it looks more interesting. Number two, it's easier to read than a broadsheet, which is the big format that we had before. Number three, a lot of the professional media is doing it. They're switching to that format. And so, I always leave those kind of decisions up to the students, but I was not behind it. In fact, I argued against it for a long time. But they said it was going to work, so I'm like, okay, let's do it. And they tried it, and I think it's been better than anything I could have imagined. I think it's sort of rejuvenated us.
Has technology consumed our life?
And I was interviewing Mo, and